My heart just stopped. 1 second, Leo was right there, his little hand a warm, trusting weight in mine. The next, he gave my fingers a playful squeeze, grinned up at me with that gap-toothed smile, and ducked behind a circular rack of puffy winter coats. "I'm a spy, Grandpa," he whispered, his voice muffled by polyester. I chuckled. "Okay, secret agent. Come out before you get lost." I waited for the rustle of the coats, for his messy brown hair to pop back into view. 3 seconds. 5. The cheerful, relentless holiday music from the mall speakers seemed to swell, filling the space where his laughter should have been. "Leo?" I said, my voice calm. Too calm. "Game's over, buddy." I stepped around the rack. Nothing but a sea of swinging coat hems and empty floor. My eyes darted. A family with strollers passed, laughing. A group of teenagers, phones in hand, swarmed by. But no small boy in a bright red cowboy hat. A cold, sharp clarity cut through the panic trying to rise in my throat. "Don't run. Running causes chaos. Chaos hides things." I remembered my training a lifetime ago in a different world. The worst thing you can do is lose the high ground. I slowly turned in a full circle, my gaze methodically sweeping the second-floor promenade of the Billings Ridge Mall. It was a river of moving color, shoppers laden with bags, kids hopped up on sugar cookies, couples holding hands. 1,000 places for a 6-year-old to vanish. But I was looking for one specific splash of color. That hat. The hat I'd bought him just an hour ago. The one he'd sworn made him look just like you, Grandpa. It was nowhere. My feet started moving before my mind fully processed the command. Not a sprint, but a deliberate, powerful walk. I weaved through the crowd, my shoulders set, my eyes fixed on the distant, sunlit arch of the mall's main entrance, 200 yards away. If he'd gotten turned around, if he was scared, he'd go for the light, for the way out. Every instinct screamed to shout his name, to shove people aside. But a lost child is a quiet ghost in a noisy room. You have to see him. You have to get to the choke points, the exits. My hand went to my pocket, closing around my phone. I'd call Elias in a second, but first I needed to see. I needed to get to those doors and plant myself there, a lighthouse in the storm of strangers. Each step was measured, heavy with a fear I refused to let surface. The cheerful music morphed into a frantic drumbeat in my ears. "Just get to the light, Leo. Grandpa's coming." The air in the mall was thick with the smell of cinnamon pretzels and panic. I, Clint, stood there feeling about as useful as a screen door on a submarine. My daughter, God bless her, had that look in her eye, the one that said, "Dad, I will love you forever if you just stand here for 5 minutes." Her errand was quick, which in mall time probably meant I'd have time to count every tile on the ceiling. My grandson, a little tornado in a red cowboy hat, was currently trying to use my leg as a maypole. That hat was the key to the whole operation. See, in a sea of glitter and garland, a bright red cowboy hat is a beacon. My job was simple. Watch the hat. I shifted my weight, my boots feeling out of place on the polished floor. Give me a muddy pasture, a stubborn calf, the bite of a Montana wind, anything but this. The noise was a constant hum, a wall of chatter and cheesy Christmas music that made my ears ache. Too many people, moving too fast, seeing nothing. But a lifetime of spotting a coyote in the brush or a fence post needing repair makes you observant. My eyes weren't for shopping. They were for scanning. I kept my hand on the little fellow's shoulder, a gentle anchor. He babbled about reindeer, his small fingers pointing at everything that sparkled. I just nodded, my gaze doing slow, steady sweeps of the area. The hat's red crown bobbed in my peripheral vision, a constant, comforting check-in. It was strange, being a sentinel in a place of such softness. But this was my pasture now. These rushing people were the herd, and my single precious charge was the one I couldn't lose. The cowboy hat wasn't just a hat. It was my fence line. As long as I could see that splash of red against the holiday chaos, everything was still right in the world. My daughter's quick errand was taking an eternity, but that was fine. I had my post. I had the hat. And for now, that was all the territory I needed to hold. My heart was hammering against my ribs like it wanted out. I'd lost sight of my grandson for maybe 30 seconds near the fountain, and just like that, the red cowboy hat he never takes off was gone. Panic, cold and slick, poured down my spine. I didn't think. I just ran, my eyes scanning the sea of shoppers, looking for that flash of crimson. I spotted the security office, a small windowed room near the food court, and burst inside. "My grandson," I gasped, the words tumbling out. "He's 5. He's wearing a red cowboy hat. I can't find him." The man behind the desk looked up slowly. His name tag read Wayne, Head of Security. He had the tired, bored expression of someone who'd heard it all before. "Okay, sir. Take a breath. Kids wander off all the time in here. It's a big place." "You don't understand," I said, my voice tight. "He doesn't wander. He was right next to me. The hat. He loves that hat. He wouldn't just walk away from me." Wayne sighed, a soft, dismissive sound that made my jaw clench. He turned to his bank of monitors, a wall of flickering black and white scenes. "We'll check the cameras. Methodically. It's the best way. What's his name?" "Elias," I said, the name feeling like a prayer. "Please, you have to hurry." But Wayne didn't hurry. His movements were agonizingly slow, deliberate. He clicked through camera feeds one by one, the toy store, the clothing racks, the main concourse. Each empty scene where that little red hat didn't appear felt like a punch to my gut. The clock on his wall ticked. A minute, then 2. "See? Nothing yet? Probably just hiding in a rack of clothes," Wayne said, not taking his eyes from the screens. "Happens every day." Agitation was turning into something raw and furious inside me. Every second he spent on his methodical search was a second my Elias was further away, scared and alone. Or worse. I couldn't let myself think the worse. "He's not hiding," I snapped, my hand slapping the counter. "Can't you just send someone to look? Now? While you watch these?" Wayne finally looked at me, his gaze flat. "Protocol, sir. We follow the cameras first. It prevents false alarms and wasted manpower. We'll find him." But his calm assurance felt like negligence. My grandson was out there, a tiny dot of red in a vast, uncaring maze, and this man was treating it like a minor inconvenience. The tension in the room was a live wire, and with every passing painstaking click of his mouse, I felt myself fraying at the edges. We weren't looking for a lost child. We were waiting for a disaster to show up on a screen. The food court was a blur of noise and panic, parents clutching kids, security guards talking into radios, the smell of pretzels and fear hanging in the air. My heart was a hammer against my ribs. "Think, Clint. Don't just stand here." Then I saw it. a splash of crimson against the dull gray tile over by a toppled trash can. My breath hitched. It was my grandson's red cowboy hat, the one he'd worn proudly all morning, the brim slightly bent from when he'd pretended to be a rodeo star in the toy store. It was just lying there, abandoned. A good hat doesn't get left behind, not by a boy who loves it. On the ranch, you learn to read signs. A gate left open, a horse acting skittish, a silence where there should be sound. This felt like that. This felt wrong. My boots were moving before my mind fully caught up. I knelt, my knees protesting, and picked it up. The felt was still warm. My throat tightened. "Sir! Sir, you can't touch that!" I looked up. It was Wayne, the head of mall security. He was striding over, his face all tight lines and protocol, followed by my friend Elias, whose own expression was pure dread. "It's his hat," I said, my voice rougher than I intended. I held it up, like evidence. "That's a potential item of evidence," Wayne said, stopping a few feet away. He didn't reach for it. He just looked at it, then at his clipboard. "We need to cordon off this area, bag it properly. The police will want to process it." "Process it?" I stood up, the hat clenched in my hand. "My grandson is missing. His hat is on the ground. This isn't about processing." Every ranch instinct in me was screaming that time was the enemy here, not a procedure. Wayne's eyes met mine, and I saw it. A cool, detached efficiency. He was more interested in the steps on his clipboard, in doing this by the book, than in the raw, terrifying truth right in front of us. He was looking at a scene, not a child. Elias put a hand on my arm. "Clint," he murmured, a warning and a comfort all at once. But I was already past listening to warnings, staring at Wayne, holding that little red hat. I knew with a cold certainty. The real search wasn't going to start with this man and his procedures. It was going to start with me. This hat wasn't just lost. It was a message. And I was the only one reading it right. I never thought I'd be back at the Silver Creek Mall. Not after what happened. But here I was, standing in the service corridor behind the food court, the smell of old grease and industrial cleaner hanging in the air. My grandson's red cowboy hat was tucked under my arm, a constant, painful reminder. I was looking for Elias. Rumor was, if you needed to know anything about the inner workings of this place, he was the man. He'd been the maintenance supervisor here for 30 years. I found him in a cluttered office, a small radio playing old country music. He was a thin man with kind eyes behind thick glasses, rolling a cart of light bulbs. "Mr. Elias?" I said, my voice echoing slightly in the concrete hallway. He looked up, wiping his hands on his gray coveralls. "Just Elias. Can I help you?" I held up the little red hat. "My grandson, Billy. He went missing from the play area last week. The security footage. It just shows him walking toward the east exit. And then nothing." Elias's expression softened, then hardened with a knowing grimace. He glanced down the empty corridor and gestured for me to come in, closing the door behind us. "Security footage," he muttered, shaking his head. "They control what those cameras see, and what they don't." My heart started pounding. "What do you mean?" He leaned in, his voice a low whisper. "You're not the first to come to me this year, Clint. I've seen the parents, the haunted looks. I keep the logs for the service doors, the ones the cameras don't cover." He pulled a worn, leather-bound notebook from a drawer. "Follow me." For the next hour, Elias became my guide through the mall's secret veins. He showed me the shortcut from the play area to the east loading dock, a route through a janitor's closet and down a freight elevator. "A kid couldn't open these doors," I said, confused. "They wouldn't need to," Elias replied, his face grave, "if someone else already had." Back in his office, he opened his notebook. His finger, calloused and stained with grease, pointed to 3 separate entries, months apart. Next to each date was a shorthand note. Report of missing child. Shift. Lead. Wayne. The air left my lungs. Wayne. The head of security. The same man who had handed me a tissue and told me they were doing everything they could. 3 others, I whispered, the horror settling like a stone in my gut. This year alone? This year. Elias just nodded, closing the book with a final soft thud. "It's a pattern, Clint. And that man, Wayne, he's the thread." I looked from Elias's somber face to the red hat in my hands. This wasn't a tragic accident. It was a design. And suddenly, the maze of the mall felt less confusing, because I had finally found the monster at the center of it. The screen glowed in the dark of the security office, casting a sickly blue light on my face. For days I'd been living in this chair, scrolling through grainy footage, my eyes burning, looking for any sign of my grandson, looking for that flash of red, his little cowboy hat. Wayne, the head of mall security, had been helping. He'd bring me coffee, pat my shoulder, and sigh about how the camera coverage in the old food court wing was spotty at best. He said it was an unfortunate blind spot, an accident of bad wiring. My finger hovered over the mouse. I was cross-referencing timestamps, a trick Elias taught me. My old friend had stayed with me every night, a silent, steady presence when my hope got thin. "Check the peripheral feeds, Clint," he'd said. "Sometimes you see the shadow of the thing, not the thing itself." So I pulled up camera 14. It was pointed at a service corridor, but in the very top corner of the frame you could see the edge of the food court entrance. The time stamp matched the moment my world ended. And there he was, not my boy, Wayne. In the corner of the screen, Wayne's uniformed back was visible. He was standing on a maintenance ladder, his hands on the dome of camera 12, the main camera that should have seen everything. I watched, my heart a cold stone in my chest, as he deliberately took the camera in both hands. He didn't fiddle with it. He didn't check a connection. He physically rotated it on its mount, turning its eye away from the benches and the play area. He pointed it at a blank wall. Then he climbed down, checked his watch, and walked calmly out of frame. 37 seconds later, the timestamp burned into my soul. A small figure in a red cowboy hat wandered into the now blinded zone and never came out. The air left my lungs. The coffee Wayne had brought me hours ago sat like poison in my gut. This wasn't incompetence. This wasn't bad wiring. This was a surgeon's precision. He'd created the blind spot. He'd made the darkness. And then he'd ushered my grandson into it. All his sighs, his sympathetic nods, they were a performance, a cover. While I was breaking apart, he was the reason. The footage kept playing, a silent, damning loop. Wayne on the ladder, Wayne turning the eye away, Wayne creating the void. I realized I was shaking. The grief that had been a heavy, suffocating blanket suddenly crystallized into something else, something sharp and clear and terrifying. This was intentional. He wasn't just negligent. He was part of it. He facilitated this. He'd looked me in the eye knowing what he'd done. I stared at the screen until the image blurred. The villain wasn't some faceless monster in the shadows. He wore a security badge. His name was Wayne, and he'd stolen more than my grandson. He'd stolen the very idea of accident, of tragedy. He'd replaced it with something far, far worse. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. Somewhere in this sprawling, echoing convention hall, a little boy in a red cowboy hat was lost and scared. And his grandfather, the monster named Wayne, was the reason. I couldn't think about that now. I had to think like a kid. While the half-hearted security search began, a couple of guys ambling down aisles, I motioned to Elias. "Main exit," I whispered, pointing to the wide glass doors where the afternoon sun was streaming in. "Lost kids go toward the light. It's instinct. I'll be the net." Elias nodded, his eyes sharp. "What do you need?" "I need Wayne's eyes off the exits. He's probably watching every door, thinking we'll try to sneak the boy out. Can you cause a stir near the security office? Something loud enough to pull him away?" A grim smile touched Elias's lips. "I think I can manage a minor crisis." He clapped me on the shoulder and melted into the crowd, heading toward the far side of the hall, where a small, official-looking booth was labeled Security. I took up my post. Leaning against a pillar about 20 feet from the main doors, I tried to look casual, like just another tired attendee waiting for a friend. But my eyes never stopped moving, scanning every small shape, every flash of color. I was looking for that specific, heartbreaking red. A few minutes passed. Then, from across the hall, I heard it. The crash was spectacular. It sounded like an entire rack of brochures and a metal sign had gone down. A raised voice, Elias's, carried over the murmur of the crowd. "You call this security? My wallet's gone. I want to see a manager right now." Heads turned. Security personnel, including the two who'd been searching, immediately started moving toward the commotion. And then I saw him. Wayne. He'd been lurking near a side exit, but the disturbance by the main security office was too compelling, too threatening to his sense of control. He shot a furious glance toward the main doors, hesitated, then stalked off toward the noise, elbowing through people. My breath caught. The trap was set. The exits were clear of his watchful glare. Now it was just me, the sunlight, and the hope that a scared little boy would remember what I'd told him about cowboys being brave. I kept my stance relaxed, but my whole being was focused on those doors, a silent prayer on repeat in my mind. "Come on, partner. Head for the light. I'm right here." The stage was set, and every second felt like an hour, waiting for a small hero in a red hat to make his move. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. 10 minutes. It had only been 10 minutes since I'd last seen my grandson's red cowboy hat bobbing through the crowd, but it felt like a lifetime. I was pushing past people, my eyes scanning every flash of color, when Elias grabbed my arm. "Clint, look," he hissed, pointing a shaking finger toward a service door marked Employees Only. The door swung open, and out he came, my little man, tears streaking his dusty cheeks. That bright red cowboy hat was crumpled in his small hand, and right behind him, one hand firmly on his shoulder, was Wayne, the mall's head of security. Wayne's face was pale, his eyes darting around the food court like a trapped animal. Every instinct in my body screamed. I didn't think. I just moved. "You let go of him!" I shouted, my voice cutting through the murmur of the crowd. I strode forward, and people instinctively parted. I reached my grandson in 3 long strides and scooped him up, pulling him away from Wayne's grip. He buried his wet face in my neck, his little body shaking. Wayne took a step back, holding up his hands. "Sir, please. I found him lost. I was bringing him to customer service." "Is that right?" I said, my voice low and steady now, cold with a fury I'd never felt before. I looked past Wayne to the dark service corridor he'd just emerged from. At the far end I could see a heavy metal door, sunlight glaring around its edges. An exit sign glowed above it. I turned to face the gathering crowd, holding my grandson tight. "This service corridor," I announced, pointing, my voice rising so everyone could hear. "It leads straight to the loading dock, to an unmonitored delivery exit in the back alley. No cameras, no doormen." I looked directly at Wayne, whose panic was now plain for everyone to see. "You weren't taking him to customer service. You were hurting him. You were taking my boy out the back." A collective gasp rippled through the onlookers. A woman put a hand over her mouth. Elias stepped up beside me, a solid, angry presence. Wayne's facade crumbled. "It's not what it looks like," he stammered. But the truth was written in the terrified glance he threw toward that distant exit door, and in the way my grandson clung to me, flinching from the man who was supposed to help. In that moment, surrounded by witnesses, the villain wasn't some shadowy stranger. He was the man in the uniform. And I had him, right where the whole world could see. I never thought I'd feel relief at the sound of sirens, but in that moment it was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. I watched, my grandson's little red cowboy hat still clutched in my hand, as 2 officers led Wayne away in handcuffs. His smug, cold mask was finally gone, replaced by pure, panicked fury. "You have no idea what you've done," he spat, struggling against the cuffs as they guided him toward the squad car. One of the detectives, a woman with a tired but sharp gaze, paused beside me and Elias. "He's right about one thing," she said, her voice low. "We didn't know the half of it. He wasn't just some creep. He was on a payroll. His job was to create blind spots in security camera coverage and monitor exits, creating windows for a trafficking operation to move kids." The words hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just about my grandson. This was a system, a sickness. Elias put a steadying hand on my shoulder. "The other cases," I managed to say, thinking of the flyers, the other faces. "The other missing children from here." The detective nodded, a grim determination in her eyes. "Every single one. They're all being reopened as of right now. Your statement, Mr. Clint, and the evidence you and Mr. Elias helped secure just blew the lid off this thing. You might have just brought a lot of families a step closer to answers." I looked down at the red felt in my hands, running my thumb over the tiny brim. "We got you back, buddy. And maybe, just maybe, we helped get others back too." In the following weeks, the mall management called me. They asked me to come in. I'll admit, I walked through those automatic doors with my heart in my throat, the memory of that day still so raw. But the manager, a man who looked genuinely remorseful, showed me something new. At every single exit, clear as day, were bright, illuminated signs that read, "Safe Meeting Spot," under 24/7 video surveillance. They were in open areas, right under the unblinking eyes of newly installed obvious cameras. "We're calling them Clint's Corners," the manager said quietly. "It was your suggestion to the detective. A simple, clear, safe place. We're implementing it chain-wide." I just stood there, staring at the sign. It wasn't a monument. It was a promise. A simple, visible promise to every parent and every child who walked through those doors. My fear, that day of sheer terror, had been sculpted into a small, fixed point of safety. I touched the sign, feeling the cool plastic. Out of the deepest darkness, a little light. That's all you can ask for. That's all you need. The mall's polished floors gleam under the bright new lights, and for the first time in months, I don't feel a knot in my stomach walking through them. My grandson's small hand is tucked firmly in mine, his tiny fingers wrapped around my own with a trust that feels like a gift. On his head, perched at a proud, slightly crooked angle, is his red cowboy hat. We walk slowly, him taking 2 steps for every one of mine, pointing at the colorful store displays. The usual mall sounds are different now, less of a chaotic din and more of a gentle hum of families. We round the corner near the old food court, and there it is, Clint's Corner. The letters are spelled out in friendly, blocky script on a clean-lit sign. It's not a store, but a wide, open space with comfortable benches, a small play area for toddlers, and a security desk that's always manned. I didn't pick the name. The mall management did, after everything that went down with Wayne. They said they wanted a dedicated safe zone, a place where anyone feeling threatened or lost could come, no questions asked, and find immediate help. They named it after the guy who refused to back down. I stop walking, and my grandson tugs gently on my hand. "Look, Grandpa, your name!" "I see it, buddy," I say, my voice a little thick. I watch a young mother herd her twin boys toward the play area, her shoulders relaxed, not constantly swiveling to scan the crowd. An elderly couple sits on a bench, sharing a pretzel, utterly at ease. This space, this brightly lit corner, is a quiet monument. Wayne is in prison, awaiting trial for a long list of charges. But this isn't about him anymore. Elias was right all those months ago. Some people you just have to stop. But some things you have to build. This is what we built, not by chasing a villain into the dark, but by standing firm, right here in the light, where it mattered most. We didn't just win a fight, we carved out a little piece of safety and made it permanent. My grandson lets go of my hand for a second to adjust his red hat, then slips his hand right back into mine, holding on tighter. I give his little fingers a gentle squeeze. We stand there for a long moment, just watching families move safely through the space. The fear that used to live here is gone, replaced by the simple, ordinary sound of people living their lives without looking over their shoulders. I finally kneel down to his level. "You ready to go see the toy store, partner?" He nods, his hat bobbing. "Yep." As we walk away from Clint's Corner, I know the battle was worth it. Every second of it. Because now, I'm not just holding my grandson's hand to protect him. I'm holding it simply because I can, in a place where we both belong.